This is the most mismarketed book I have ever read. This is comped as Gilmore Girls meets Practical Magic, but even if you squint and look at it sideways, that is not what this book is. What's actually in it? A bunch of recipes, sure, but randomly Christianity. Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're discussing The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic by Brienne Randall. And we're also discussing the unfortunate side effects of mismarketing your book, which is that a bunch of people are going to hate it. Every single person I know who has read this book has said the exact same thing. This was pitched as cozy. It's pitched as Gilmore Girls.
Got a lot of nerve. You've got a lot of nerve.
And instead, it is a book where there's magic and magical recipes, sort of, but really it's about family trauma. And it's a book that specifies, no, they're not witches. And also they go to a Baptist church and they use particular Bible-based jargon, which was a jump scare as an ex-fundy. And they bring up Mary and Martha, and none of this is interrogated. It's just done as if it's normal, and you're left wondering what was the intention there. By 65%, there were 4 biblical references. A bunch of people complained about this, which ended up having an effect where a change was made that this is in the front of the book, which does not accurately define what the reading experience is. Religious elements is as vague as it was intended to be. So basically, anybody who opens this book has no warning that the main character is a Christian who practices magic and does not want to be called a witch and attends a Baptist church and still thinks about her mental health in a way that is very funny. And also, it previously did not have a trigger warning that talks about the suicide attempt, which there is, and it is written very irresponsibly. The marketing for this is like ordering a pizza and then being delivered play food pizza. That's not pizza, that's plastic. Or maybe just a drawing of pizza. And there's so many recipes in here. Like every chapter ends with one, which is jarring when you're experiencing really traumatic things and then being told, hey, here's how to make some biscuits. And some of the recipes contain name brand blends of essential oils from Young Living, and some of the recipes seem to have been copied and pasted directly from recipe blogs. So this book will leave you hungry for food, but also hungry for a better book and some answers as to why the Christianity stuff was tossed in here the particular way that it was. It made me want to actually experience some joy and coziness, so I put the book down for a bit and I went to go bake something. Have you heard of Craftsy before? They actually sponsored today's video. Craftsy is an online community for the crafters, makers, and bakers who want to advance their creative skills or learn some new ones. They have over 2,000 classes you can take, not just baking, but painting, drawing, sewing, cooking, crochet. I know you book people love your crochet, especially while you're audiobooking. The classes are all step-by-step and they have downloadable resources to help make it easy for you. I personally love baking cakes. I think I've talked about this before. I was into reading as my hobby. I liked to bake, and I have tools to decorate cakes, but my decorating skills need work. So I've been using Craftsy's classes taught by experts to help me advance in that. But I've also been using it to try new fun recipes with Carlos and my kids. We tried out Beyond Vanilla Flavors from Around the World by Jenny McCoy, where she does internationally inspired twists on a traditional vanilla cake. Let me tell you the serendipitous events that led to me making this particular recipe. This is a better story than the book that we're about to review. I made her recipe for matcha citrus cake, inspired by Japan. I felt like it was fate. Carlos and I used to live in Japan, where I fell in love with all things matcha. However, recently my favorite bakery here in Tampa had a Gilmore Girls themed menu. So while I'm reading this book actively inside of the cafe, getting my Gilmore Girls fix that I didn't get from the book, I also ordered this drink, which is like a matcha and strawberry drink. So then I went home and I saw this recipe on Craftsy that looked exactly like the drink. All of the stars hollow aligned. Gilmore Girls joke. And this cake was so delicious, even Emily Gilmore would have approved. I'm a visual learner, so this class was perfect for me because I've never made meringue for cake batter before. And Jenny broke it down and broke all the steps down into like foolproof steps. And voila, perfect cake. Although we did make the recipe our own because we wanted like a traditional looking 4-tier cake, but it came out so delicious and so pretty. I had more fun making the recipes off Craftsy than I did reading the ones in this book that we're going to review today. With over 2,000 classes in more than 20 creative categories, there's always something new to learn. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49 for their first Craftsy membership. Click that link below to get started. Let me know what your creative endeavors are, and thank you so much to Craftsy for sponsoring today's video. So as you can see, the marketing for this book was cozy, 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 and yet the reviews started coming in and everybody was like, not cozy, Christianity actually. Hi, before we get into it, I think this is one of those videos that needs the disclaimer. And the disclaimer is reviews are for readers. Link to this shirt down below. My friend makes it. If you are the author, do not be here. Don't watch this. Click off. Jump ship. If you're friends with the author, same deal. Don't be here. If you're a super fan of this author or their books, don't be here. Not a good idea if you are any of those people to watch an in-depth rant review about this book. Not a good choice. So let's skedaddle now so that we can just preserve our mental health, yeah? The other thing I want to say is, in this video, I am going to break down a lot of rhetoric that is rooted in fundamentalist evangelical Christianity that is in this book that was not marketed as Christian fiction. I think that the book is displaying markers of being Christian fiction despite not having been marketed so. I did do some research. I do know that the author was in the same or similar sect of Christianity that I was a part of, and so everything that I'm going to say is rooted in my understanding of that particular religion, having lived it myself, and explaining why I think that this book does straddle the line of being Christian fiction and the particular jargon that we use in that religion that is coming through in this book. Okay, so let's behave ourselves in the comments. Now let me get this out of the way because somebody already said this to me. Somebody said to me that I would not have complained if this book were the same thing, except the references in here were references to Judaism or Islam. Correct, because typically people who follow those religions do not do subterfuge in an attempt to try to sway you into believing their religion. That is a very uniquely American evangelical thing to do that I have seen time and time again and reviewed time and time again on this channel. I also think, being an evangelical myself, that the way that evangelicals, that fundies talk about mental health is honestly dangerous. It led me to have very complex feelings about needing medication and going through periods of my life where I thought I was too good for the meds that I clearly needed. And so when this book references mental health struggles and brings up fundy jargon, I have to wonder why, especially when it is not interrogated by the text at all. I went into this and I noticed fundy references, fundy jargon in chapter 1. By fundy jargon, I mean phrases that we use in our day-to-day life and the way that we are conditioned to think in evangelical fundamentalism, specifically about things like mental health. I noticed these in chapter 1. Chapter 1. Then they continued throughout, and every difficult thing that the character would deal with, some piece of fundy jargon would be present. Everybody who reads this, who is evangelical, picks up on this, and it feels weird. We have to ask, why did you do that? Why did you put that in there? Now, if you didn't grow up fundy, you might not even recognize it. If you're like vaguely familiar with the Bible, you might pick up on the fact that they go to a Baptist church and there's a preacher talking about certain sermons. When the grandma dies, the Bible is brought up. When she's having a difficult conversation with her aunt, Mary and Martha from the Bible are brought up. These references you might catch on to, or they might go over your head. But for us who grew up in Fundyland, the rest of it is sending out little signals. And so for those of us who did, we're wondering, why'd you do that? This is not a thing that I ever see discussed by people who practice Judaism or who practice Islam, where it's this subtle underlying messaging where the book was marketed to not be religious at all, and yet there's religious undertones over and over, which is why you see this brought up in reviews over and over and over again. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, this book is super not cozy. It is super, super, super not cozy. In fact, it is super triggering. And the fact that the trigger warnings were not added until after, again, makes sense when you consider that fundies often do bait and switch tactics. They try to reel you in and then suddenly it's, oop, we're actually here to talk to you about Jesus. I have actually talked about this book's marketing tactic in a video that I have for only patrons, where I talk about several books that were written by either former or current Christians that do bait and switch marketing tactics. And it's not just books that fundies do this in. If you've ever seen this, you might have been walking in a city and found a $20 bill on the ground, and then suddenly you pick it up and it's not a $20 bill. It's a come to our church. They try to lure you in with the promise of something, and then it turns out to just be religion. And it feels like on several levels, that is what happened here. We were lured in with the promise of cozy and Gilmore Girls and practical magic. I guess there is some level of practical magic in here, if you squint, but Gilmore Girls was the main one that we were told, and that's not in here at all.
Nice spin. You should work for Bush.
Unless the only takeaway that you have from Gilmore Girls is a small town.
You're not going to kill the bag boy. Why not?
This is double coupon day. You'll bring down the town.
Which is not the quintessential thing about Gilmore Girls. It's implied in the name, and small town books are a thing. So if you wrote a small town book, just say that. But that's the thing is, you couldn't just say that because then you wouldn't get the Gilmore Girls fans to pick up your book.
What in the world?
I think that this would have been better off comped as The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina meets Christian Witch, who doesn't want to be called a witch. Because it's not Gilmore Girls, it's not mothers and daughters exactly. It's more of an entire family kind of thing and how magic it affects an entire family. And for that, I would say it is more aligned with The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. But it is missing greatly the draw of The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, which is effortlessly beautiful prose, really compelling characters, and family drama that you actually give a shit about watching and has like devastating consequences. And The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina was never marketed as cozy. You have a magical house, you have devastating family drama, it's a little bit dark, but there's something that feels like home there. This feels like it wants to be a book like Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, but it doesn't know how to do that. It doesn't know how to do anything. We went off on 8 different paths and plot lines here. I'm so serious, it's 8 at a minimum, only to have the most unsatisfactory ending that felt like fundy jargon again. I really don't know whether or not I would classify this as Christian fiction, because if the answer is like the answer for the problems are continuously based in Christian rhetoric, even if it's not explicitly saying that, I don't know. I would say this straddles a line, and I feel like that was intentional. All right, let's just get into it. Let's do it top to bottom. I'm not going to give you the synopsis. We're just going to go in blind, but trigger warning for suicide attempt on page. I will warn you again before we talk about it. Also trigger warning for mention of SA resulting in pregnancy. Also trigger warning for cancer, death of a loved one. All right, we're back. Let's finish this. I also need to issue a trigger warning for a magical roofie being used unapologetically. All right, so it starts off, content warning, cancer, suicide ideation / attempt, domestic violence as told through secondhand account does not appear on page. That does not accurately convey the fact that there is SA mentioned that also ends in a pregnancy. Also, fake pregnancy is in here. And then it just says religious elements. You know what's interesting about vague wording of things? Just let me go off on a little tangent first. Vague wording is really starting to piss me off. It's really starting to piss me off, and that's because entirely I am actively involved in both my local, state, and national communities as far as legislation that harms people. And what I know is that people who try to get away with things love vague wording. They love it. They love to rewrite terms to mean different things, and they also love to write legislation that is so vague that they can get away with anything they want. And typically the people doing that are Christian nationalists. So to see it here, whether or not this author has deconstructed, to see it here tells me that thing that we do, the subterfuge, the bait and switch, the vague wording, the beating around the bush, that thing that we do in Fundyland to try to draw people in and get them in our clutches, for lack of a better term, until they sort of like osmosis into the Fundy community. To see it here tells me that deconstruction has not been done enough, at least in the writing of this book. And the fact that religious elements was written, but only after the fact that this got brought up to the author over and over again, you didn't tell us that this contains Christianity, not religious elements, Christianity in particular. What's not being said is so loud here. Our main character is Sadie Revelare. She lives with her grandma. She also has a twin brother named Seth who isn't around, and Sadie is currently panicking because she is noticing that a bunch of bad things are happening one after the other, which means that something bad is happening. The sun was cold is the first line of this book. The sun was cold. That's a new one. The tea kettle refused to boil, and the wretched scent of old memories burned from the logs as Sadie Revelare built up the fire. Even the grandfather clock, which had never paid attention to time, warbled out 10 sad magpie notes, a sign I must not miss. This first chapter was so long. We are trying to set the stage for who and what we're dealing with here. We have Sadie Revelare. She lives with her grandma. She is a person who is cursed. She's dealing with back-to-back-to-back things that are letting her know that something bad is coming. And also, she's living in Heartbreak Hotel. Some people needed flowers and pretty words. Sadie needed truth and kept promises, because her love interest, who's going to come back into the picture after 10 years of being away, is Jake, and he breaks promises The book says, like cinnamon sticks. So yeah, you can see what kind of writing we're in for. It says that she has to avoid a snake in the road on the way to work, and dodges a crow that tries to swoop near her windshield, and all of these things mean something. Now there's no real like rhyme or reason to what means what. It, I don't think, is based in like actual pagan witch lore. Just sort of seems like thrown in here willy-nilly. Even townsfolk who didn't believe in magic knew what a flooding meant. Someone was about to return. Everything is fine. It'll be fine, Sadie told herself again. Sadie hated that word fine. It was a band-aid, a sugar-coated pill to mask the bitterness beneath. Fine was what you used when it was anything but. So she goes to the cafe that she owns with her grandmother, which is called A Peach in Time, which I completely forgot it's called that because it rarely comes up. When the first batch of cookies came out so spicy that she had to spit a mouthful into the sink, a tingling began in her toes and worked its way up her body. She tried to brush it off by throwing a dash of ginger over her shoulder. You can let me know if you are a witch or somebody who practices this kind of stuff, if that's a thing. But yeah, this is what you're in for reading this, is just like random things are thrown in here, like random rituals that it doesn't really feel like there's any sort of like thing that the author is connected to writing these things. It's just like, I want to make it seem like my main character is a witch, but we're not going to call her a witch in the text. She specifically doesn't want to be called a witch. 7 bad omens in a row and a nightmare was around the corner, and she'd just reached bad omen number 4. Sadie had learned the rules of Reveilleur magic while growing up at her grandmother's feet. I don't feel like she did learn all of the rules. We are told some of them, and 2 of them are based in fundy jargon. The magic had been in her veins for so long, sometimes she forgot who she was without it. This is a weird line to write because the ending of this is Sadie, basically, without saying it, the book does a whole die to self thing in order to save everybody. Because somebody's gonna die unless Sadie dies to self. Die to self is a fundy term. We'll get there. So we get told like a bunch of different things about different recipes, like fruit and basil tartlet glistened like a long forgotten dream, used for good wishes, love, and blah, blah, blah. So like all these different recipes are used for different things, but none of them seem to ever work on anybody on page. Like, I guess it's happening to the people in the small town that we're in because they keep coming back for more, but none of these people believe that these things are magic. And I don't know like how far that magic extends. Speaking of the small town, it's called Poppy Meadows, and it sounds like a small town in Mississippi, maybe even Florida. It's in Northern California, which I find extremely hard to believe, especially because like I tandem read this, and the audio version, the grandma has like an almost Southern accent sometimes, but then sometimes it does sound like she's from like, I don't know, New Hampshire. I don't know. There's no real sense of identity in this book. It's trying to be a lot of things because it was written to sell. That's my opinion on this. And then it says, fundy jargon number 1, she'd trained herself to take every thought captive, shoving them away where they were safe in the darkness. Otherwise, they'd spiral out of control into full-blown anxiety. It didn't always work. Even now, the tightness was squeezing her chest again. Take every thought captive is from a verse in 1 Corinthians. Sorry, 2 Corinthians. And here, if you Google it, you will see that in Christian culture, it's very common to take verses and make like little art pieces out of them to post on our Instagram accounts. And there's even a whole book called Take Every Thought Captive, Exchange Lies of the Enemy for the Mind of Christ. The verse says, we tear down arguments and every presumption set up against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. This is how we are taught to deal with anxious thoughts in Fundyland. Instead of going to therapy, getting on meds, doing cognitive behavioral therapy, we are taught, think about this Bible verse, think about your anxiety in the context of this Bible verse, and then you will feel better. I have literally never ever heard any book that wasn't Christian fiction use the term take every thought captive. That's a funny term. So then Gigi, the grandma, steps onto the scene, and she immediately comes on saying the word pissant and shitass, and those come up over and over and over again in this book, trying to make Gigi seem like a tiny terror of a grandma. And we get more info about the family and all of their, oddities, like burying found pennies in the garden at midnight, always wearing green in some form or the other, and never whistling indoors. Sadie cannot be in a relationship because of a curse that she has. So even after her ex, Jake, left town 10 years ago, she hasn't really dated anybody except this guy, Ryan Wharton, who we see for all of like 5 seconds. As he caught Sadie's eye, he gave her a sad smile and a half wave before trudging on. He was the temptation Sadie had almost given into. Not out of love, nothing like it, but comfort, companionship, someone to hold her hand or listen to the story of her day. In the end, though, it wasn't fair to him. He deserved more than lukewarm affection, especially since he'd been in love with Sadie since they were in grade school. Her need to do the right thing was greater than her desire for the relationship. She'd wished more than once that she could do something for herself, no matter the consequence of injustice. But the guilt always ate at her before she could follow through. You know, the thing about, like, trying to explain to you the undertones of, like, Christian fiction here is I don't know how to put into words a lot of it. I don't really know how to explain it to somebody who wasn't there. Like, it's an entire subculture that you don't really pick up on, like, the small notes of unless you've been in it. But something about that is that. Heartbreak for Sadie wasn't a passing folly to be recovered from with time and chocolate and tears. Because of her curse, it could take everything from her. So all these bad things are happening. She says that it's like all sending a message, cold as ice, something wicked this way comes. Something had turned up the oven at 500 degrees. So then she's looking in the cabinet for something, and of course there's no cinnamon, basil, clove, or marjoram. Instead, youth sat next to friendship, love, kindness, and forgetfulness were relegated to their own section. Stability, health, and fertility kept good wishes company. But none of this is like really used, and I don't know if it like actually works or not. I'm really confused about the magic here, and the magic really isn't the cozy, cute, fun magic of it is not the point. The point is family trauma. And then we get the Latina best friend, which when she came on page, I immediately texted Carlos about it. Querido amado, a high musical voice barged into her sanctuary just as she slid the bacon tray into the oven.
Why aren't you watching her? No estabas cuidándola.
Did a tornado hit in here? Sadie turned and frowned at the raven-haired woman. Raquel, her best friend since childhood, scanned the room with wide, expressive eyes. And of course, one of the first things that Raquel says is, Dios mío. Wow, that's great. The end of this chapter ends with carrot cake cookies with cream cheese frosting, but not before it says, the first heartbreak that had sparked her curse to life, and seeing old sorrow before noon was the seventh bad omen. A nightmare was on its way. Oh, and she sees her ex walking through town, Jake.
Are you still hung up on her, Jess? Is that why you came back?
No.
Good. Because she is over you.
The air was brisk as ginger snaps as the sun made its daily commute into the sky, but it only served to make her skin clammier. All right. So she's talking to Raquel about her magic going haywire in chapter 2. And she talks about how magic goes haywire every time something bad happens, like after her brother abandoned her. It takes almost a year for her magic to go back to normal after things go haywire. Raquel laughed, her stick-straight raven hair blowing in the early autumn breeze, carrying it with it the scent of strawberries and anticipation. Oh, you can smell anticipation? That's interesting. And she specifically does not want to call her magic witchcraft. It's not just food, it's magic, it's hopes and promise and love and all that stuff. You don't call that witchcraft, Raquel says. I plead the fifth, Sadie says. Why? Why don't you want to call it witchcraft? And you know what? This never gets explained. Who doesn't like witchcraft? Could it be the Baptists that you go to church with in the book? We just don't have a conversation about it. If there ever was a conversation about it, it got removed from the book. Raquel orders for Sadie, and Sadie calls her bossy, which is dancing, tiptoeing towards the line of stereotyping a Latina woman, but all right. Sadie's like, I found out that you know who is back in town. What, Voldemort, Raquel says? A Harry Potter joke in this day and age? Apparently he's a firefighter now. Wonder how he looks in that uniform. I hope he's gotten fat. So we just did possible Latina stereotype, Harry Potter joke, and fat phobia? We're in chapter 2. What the fuck are we doing? They find out that Jake, her ex, was at a big station in Southern California but wanted something a little more relaxed, so he decided to move back home. They run into person after person in this small town, and this is the only thing that's trying to make it seem Gilmore Girls-y. It's like the first episode of Gilmore Girls where they go to the diner and you're running into people trying to introduce you to the small town of it.
The stock boy at the supermarket, I already talked to Taylor Dozy about him. You just send him around tomorrow.
But the thing about Gilmore Girls is that you are really immersed with the town. This is not, like, the point isn't the small town. The point is not the side characters or how the Reveilleur family interacts with them at all. That is not the point of this book. So, like, one person who shows up to the diner is someone who once some lady who caught Sadie kissing a boy behind the pastor's house during junior high youth group and told anyone who would listen that Sadie was using her devilish ways to lure innocent boys into sin. Of course, then Gigi, the grandma, had shown up at her door with a cake soaked in misfortune. And of course, Raquel is using like Spanglish. Your problem, cariño, is that it's practically impossible for anyone to get into that heart of yours. And when they do, you love them forever no matter what. The mayor walks in. His name is Elias. It mentions that he has a husband named James. He never comes up again. So thanks for that. Talks a little bit about Raquel's family. She has younger sisters. One is 19 and one is 16. And apparently her parents sometimes think she's a bad influence. God forbid they go against Mama y Papa Rodriguez. Oh, wow. And then it's like, oh, we still need some characterization for Raquel. How are your meds, by the way? Sadie asks her. Good. It numbs me a little too much, but sometimes it's better than the alternative. The alternative could be disastrous. She'd sat with Raquel while she'd spiraled into a catatonic state, been with her between manic episodes that threatened her safety, and cried with her she begged not to be broken. Raquel's bipolar disorder was a roller coaster, but it was one that made her best friend the strongest and most courageous person she knew, even if she herself didn't see it. So in order to give the Latina characterization, instead of just making her speak Spanglish and make her bossy, we gave her older sister syndrome, strict parents, and bipolar disorder. Okay, that's great. No, that's real good. Great. And of course, Sadie has a rival who never forgave her for outing her for bra stuffing. It made her life mission to make Sadie feel as small as possible. So we have girl hate for no reason that really never comes on page in any meaningful way. It's just there. And Raquel continues to call her cariño. I can never decide if I should try to be nicer like you or if I should try to make you more of a stone cold bitch like me, Raquel says. Wow. Poppy Meadows has a bookstore, and of course the bookstore is always calling to her, even though it never talks about her actually reading. It's just we're doing the scene of the bookstore, and we had to have a Rory Gilmore moment.
Wow, aren't we hooked on phonics?
Oh, I read a lot. Do you read?
Not much.
Even if I don't buy them, they need to know that they're loved, that someone wants to look at them, caress their delicate pages. This is very Rory Gilmore.
And she's reading again. How novel.
And we get more interactions with the townspeople who are like, we don't know what we would do without Gigi. Spoiler alert, Gigi's about to die in a few chapters. She goes home to their house, which is nearly antebellum, with its sweeping front porch and white pillars, though the lemon tree out front had wide-reaching branches that made it look more suited to an African plain than California. Oh, thank you for that. Rumor had it that sucking the juice from a lemon off the Revelry tree could show you what you wanted most in the world.
Oh my God, this is the greatest lemon I've ever grown. I mean, this is a great lemon. Suki, you gotta try this lemon. Isn't that a great lemon?
That is a great lemon!
Try it, it's a Meyer.
Jackson grows fruit and then scares people with it.
Sadie had tried it a dozen times growing up, her cheeks pinching at the sour sweet taste, but all she ever saw was the house in front of her. So it's the house. You want the house. So they have a big garden, which apparently they use for making their tasty treats at, what is it called? A Peach in Time. She lives alone with her grandma and her grandma's dog, which is described as being fat. And then we get a flashback scene to back in the day when she gets her magic and then learns about her curse, because every Revelaire family member has a curse. And hers is that she will suffer 4 heartbreaks. She doesn't know what her brother's is. Every curse is different. Some don't take effect until you've nearly forgotten about them. Maybe you thought you could get away scot-free, only to find it slumbering like a queen of the night. Okay, let's talk about her and Jake. Jake shows up to talk to her. He brings her a tiny spoon, which is something that her grandparents used to do for each other whenever they would travel or something. I don't know. It's supposed to be cute. I don't care. Sadie, again, I need to talk to you about the magical roofie situation. When Jake wanted to leave when they were like 18, here's how their last night went together. Or actually, here's how she thinks about their last night together. It used to be a dance with Jake around desire and convention. The curse made her fear. She is cursed to suffer 4 heartbreaks. The curse made her fear, but in the end, love cast it out. I would like to introduce you to this verse from 1 John. Perfect love casts out fear, yada yada. While we're about to do a magical roofie situation, I just wanted to let you know that while we're talking about this, we're doing another Bible verse. That's 2 Bible verses, and we are at like chapter 3. She knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that she would sacrifice her magic for him if it came to that. That's what scared her the most. On a smoky summer night, when she was 18, she'd made chrysanthemum biscuits and slathered them with wildflower honey. As he ate, the scales fell from his eyes and the truth was unveiled. With his heart laid bare, he told her he loved her. And with sticky fingers and a voice made pure with honesty, he made a vow by the lemon tree that they would be together forever.
Oh, look how he just handled those lemons.
What are you talking about?
He threw them in the bag. Not tossed them or placed them, but threw them like they meant nothing to him.
They're lemons.
They're symbolic.
And if you make a vow on the lemon tree, you have to abide by it. But in the morning, when the magic had worn off, he left, breaking every promise in his wake. For years, Sadie had blamed herself for tricking him into the truth, but despite the guilt, her anger grew like chickweed. He was a coward, knowing the truth and not accepting it, denying it and lying to himself, but worst of all, denying Sadie the love she had been willing to sacrifice her magic for. You're a sick fuck. You magical roofied him into telling you that he loved you. Are you fucking for real? After you wrote a fucking Bible verse in here? What's happening right now? And instead of just saying, hey, that was kind of fucked up that I gave him a magical thing that would make it so that he would tell me that he was in love with me, and then hopefully him saying that he was in love with me would convince him to stay, and that didn't work out, and now I'm mad about it even though I was the one who technically drugged him with magic. She says to him, I trusted you and you ruined me. She'd been waiting to say that. You gave him wildflower biscuits to convince, to force him into confessing his love when he was not ready. No, ma'am, I don't like that at all.
Jerk, ass, arrogant, inconsiderate.
In chapter 3, her grandma tells her, you know the legacy, every Revelair has magic, but they also have a curse. I told you your time would come and it's arrived. Your choice, of course, is to forego the curse by sacrificing your magic. So she doesn't want to sacrifice her magic. And in the end, the answer is, in order for bad things not to happen, you have to sacrifice your magic. Which is like a real big roundabout way to get back to where we were at the beginning, and it's so fucking stupid. And it's even worse because when I tell you that the grandma left the most, again, vaguely worded note to tell Sadie this when she could have used the same amount of words to just write down, sacrifice your magic to save your brother. Sadie's like, well, what about Seth's curse, her twin brother? Her grandma's like, that's none of your business, that's between me and Seth. Which, okay, focus on your own future. And Sadie says, whatever his future is, mine is the same. So again, you can rework that, but we both know it's from Wuthering Heights. And this is a thing that the author does because in her other book, she also has a reference to Pride and Prejudice, where the love interest, which is a Shadow Daddy knockoff of Mr. Darcy, says that the main character is both prideful and prejudiced. Great! We're twins. That's how it has to be, and I know Seth. He'd never give anything up until he understood it fully, and he doesn't, so I can't either. And I wouldn't even if he did. You wouldn't understand it even if he did? What does that sentence mean? So this is where we find out through her grandma, I think reading tea leaves, that she has a curse of 4 heartbreaks. Each one will be worse than the last. They'll be so deep, they'll rend your soul in two, and if you're not careful, when all 4 heartbreaks come to pass, the curse will consume you and your magic will flee, leaving chaos behind, bitter as milk thistle. This curse will follow you like storm clouds, leaning towards you like wheat in the wind. Love only as you are willing to lose your magic. And then in the end, she just loses her magic to fix everything. We just went right back to the beginning. Sadie, by the way, does not know what Seth's magic is. Seth was never content. He was always digging and asking questions about their magic and their parents, which I don't know why they couldn't talk to each other about this, but okay. I don't know what the big fucking secret is about magic, but all right. The stuff about their parents was a mystery thick as cold clover honey. Everything is a food reference. I would understand if With the Fire on High had nothing but food references. That's a book about cooking. This is a book about family trauma and using food to magical roofie somebody. The only thing Gigi would tell them about their parents is that their father had never been in the picture and their mother was gone, not dead, or that she'd left, just gone, like a puff of dust in a summer breeze. Sadie never understood her brother's need for answers. Which, as an anxious person, I don't get that. Like, I am an anxious person and all I crave are answers. I spent a lot of money trying to figure out where my grandpa came from because he was an orphan, and I was like, I can't sleep until I know the answers. cannot relate to this character whatsoever. Especially, like, she's anxious. I guess I'm just anxious in a different way. In chapter 5, they go to church. Gigi was always crotchety on the way to church because, in her words, if you're going to drag my ass to God's house, he better know I'm not coming willingly. Her grandmother's Baptist roots wouldn't let her go too long without attending despite her feelings on the matter. What?
Lorelai, what are you doing?
Do you mean? I want you to elaborate so much and so specifically, immediately. Go on, tell me more. Sadie, of course, always brings baked goods to the church. The Baptist church that they go, they bring their witchcraft to Baptist church. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because we all know that if anybody loves witches, it's fucking Baptists. When Pastor Jay called for the congregation to greet one another, Jake's there. Jake kept a hand on her shoulder as she begrudgingly introduced him to the surrounding families. She surreptitiously tried to shrug his hand off. Sorry, he whispered. It's weird to be the new guy at a place I basically grew up in. You're my buffer. Ew, you just gave me the ick. In a church, of course. Sadie tried to listen to the sermon on the meeting behind the 7 bowls of God's wrath and revelation.
Gotta be from the Bible, right? So I'll just go home, do some research, look on the internet, see what I can find. I'll call you when I know something.
But Jake just kept pushing his knee into hers. If you don't stop that, you're gonna feel my wrath. Your wrath sounds nice. What are we doing? But then when they go home, Gigi says, remind me not to do that for another 6 months. Leave the wolves to their feeding. What are we saying?
Let never day nor night unhallowed pass, but still remember what the Lord hath done.
Why do we even go to church, especially a Baptist church? What are we doing? What are we saying? What is happening? It's not that bad, is it? Sadie, our main character, says, half-heartedly. A bunch of holier-than-thou, Bible-thumping, small-town hicks, the lot of them, Gigi says. Some of them might be, Sadie conceded, but not all of them. It's community. What are we doing right now? What are we doing, man?
I stayed up all night. I read the entire Bible, cover to cover. I don't know what it means.
David.
You have to tell me what it means.
I know. I'm just being a grouchy old crone. But you're always doing the work for everyone. You never stop. Oh boy. There's something very Christian oldest sister coded about this. And like passing that off as a good thing. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it to you if you didn't grow up in it.
You make it so that when people fail you, you get to feel like the martyr. And they get to feel like not only did they screw up, but they also disappointed you.
In chapter 6, she finally decides, Gigi finally decides to explain to Sadie and Seth, who just randomly decides to stroll back into town after being away and abandoning his twin sister. Gigi's like, hey, I'm dying. I have cancer, and I need to tell you about your parents. Also, I have to tell you about Bambi, the dog.
It's a dog.
Yeah, very good. He's smart too, not as smart as you.
What are you doing with a dog?
I bought him. Doesn't he look happy?
There's a puppy that strolls on into their garden, and she's like, oh, this puppy, so cute, love it, gonna take care of it. Who could possibly have been irresponsible enough to just abandon this poor puppy? Take a guess. So Gigi reveals that she has stage 4 cancer. She's like, I'm not going to be able to continue on. There are traditions that you will have to take over, Sadie. By the way, this is not going to happen at the end of the book. This woman is going to die like midway, maybe 40% maybe through the book. Like, this is a big part of this is watching someone die of cancer and grieving their death. And then in the wake of their death, also, the main character is going to become suicidal. Jake shows up to the bakery that Sadie and her grandma run, and Sadie is all flustered. And he's like, no, I'm not here for you, I'm just here for desserts. And then Gigi sees him, goes up to him and gives him a hug. And it said, of course, it calls him a shit ass because she spends the whole book saying the word shit ass and pissant. It's supposed to be cute and quirky. But then it says that she barely comes up to his navel. Listen, my grandma was 4'11". If I have that picture of her, I'll show you. Like, she was little. She shrunk in her old age, okay? But comes up to his navel? I don't fucking think so. Is he 6'10"? What are we saying? What are we saying here? She comes up to his navel. Of course, he's the love interest in a book, so he must be bigly huge. Otherwise, it's not sexy enough. So he leaves, and Gigi's looking at Sadie, and Sadie's like, I'm fine. I'm just gathering my wits. And Gigi says, and I want you to hear me, okay? Like, two is maybe a coincidence, but 3 Bible references is not a coincidence, okay? I'm fine, I'm just gathering my wits, Sadie reassures her. Rule number 9, sugar. sugar, says Gigi. High emotion equals unpredictable magic, Sadie recited. I know. You remember what happened when that boy left? Gigi asked. Sadie nodded. She'd nearly burned Gigi's kitchen down. Guard your heart, for from it flows the wellspring of life. I would like to introduce you to Proverbs 4, verse 23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. You're gonna tell me that these things aren't directly connected? That's three Bible verse references related to the magic, but they're not witches, right? So what are they? And this is Gigi talking. The one who hates the Baptist church is the one saying, guard your heart, for from it flows the wellspring of life. So if the magic in this is directly related to Christian religious belief and practices, and the answer to all of this in the end is related to Christian belief and practices, which I can make an argument that it is, then should I or should I not call this Christian fiction? I still don't know. I feel like this straddles the line again and again. I feel very strongly that this was on purpose, which I don't like, because fundies and funny media have a long-standing history and present of doing subterfuge. But this is why people feel so much misled by this book. And what's bothering me is that this book is not even mentioning that those are Bible verses. Gigi shit on the Baptist church and yet is using Bible verses in her rhetoric regarding the magic. And that's the third time that we have referenced the Bible. And we're not just saying those are Bible verses. So unless you know that they're Bible verses, you're not going to pick up on it. It's just attributed to rules of magic or when her emotions are out of whack. And this is also the second time that we have a Bible verse used in relation to controlling emotions, but we again have not talked about the fact that those are Bible verses. So Gigi falls because she's sick, and Seth comes back into town. Seth and Sadie have it out because Seth abandoned her. She's upset about this, but also Gigi needs to tell them about the Revelaire magic, because now that she's dying, now she can finally reveal everything. What was keeping her from it? Let's find out, if anything. All of these answers are fucking disappointing. For each of them, their magic was different, all of her children. They all took to it in different ways, but Florence, their mother, she was a firecracker. It wasn't until she turned 8 that I realized she was an amplifier, a conduit. Every 100 years or so, in every magical family, there's a sort of prodigy. Damn it, I hate that word. Prodigy born. Their magic is stronger, amplified, more unpredictable. It swells until it spills over. What? Seth says. Our mom was like a super witch? Stop saying witch, Sadie said. We're not witches. We use symbolism and the power of the earth, that's all. Magic doesn't mean witches. Potato, Seth says. Why does the person who regularly uses Bible jargon in regards to her mental health and her magic, which she refused to call witch magic, and is the person doing apologetics for attending a Baptist church, why is that all happening from the same person? Why is that? And this is never interrogated in the text. She never has an argument with somebody and realizes, maybe I need to take a step back and reevaluate. None of that. It's just done. They act as a conduit to amplify another person's magic, and it sends out a kind of signal. Bat signal, Seth asks. Can you be serious for 5 seconds? These people are 28 years old. 28 years old. Their grandma is dying.
I think this is funny.
A signal that those who would want to use someone like that for their own, usually dark ends, can take advantage of. Instead of living in fear, your mother was fearless, and anybody who came for her be damned. She tried to use her magic out, but by the time she was a teenager, she trailed sparks behind her wherever she went, started fires without meaning to. She moved out as soon as she turned 18, tried to leave all that magic behind her, much like someone else we know, Seth, the heretic who left instead of staying and going to Baptist church with us. It didn't work. It never works. People loved your mother, even if she was hard and cruel, and especially when she was convincing you to do something you shouldn't. The mom comes on page and is not hard or cruel. I don't know why we wrote this. Men fell in love with her after a single glance, and she couldn't shake them. I knew the second she brought Julian home that he was bad news. He had the magic in him, but it was bad magic. Dark, let me tell you. He was a seeker, all right, that bastard. He wanted to use your mother as a conduit. I don't get it. What could he do? Wave a magic wand and steal like her essence or what? He lured her in, your mama. She was enchanted, at first by his charm and promises. He told her he could get rid of her magic. They performed a dark ritual together, but it wasn't to get rid of her magic. It was to make her fertile. What? The twins demanded at once. That took an unexpected turn, Seth added dryly. If you don't shut the fuck up.
What do you think, Mom? Should I pursue the career in comedy or?
Oh my, that took an unexpected. Are you kidding me? Is this a joke? Bring Raquel in here to say Dios mío. Actually, let me just get my husband. Babe, help, this is dumb. Most times the amplifier's curse, it's to never be able to bear children. That's one of the reasons they're so incredibly rare. We weren't even supposed to be born, Seth said. I knew it was dark magic. I knew that nature would try to stop you both from coming into this world. Too much power, too unpredictable. Now to save a life takes a life, and I took Julian. The grandma murdered a guy, specifically her grandchildren's father. I didn't know there were two of you, and by the time we found out, it was too late. No sacrifice would have been enough. Let's back up here a second and focus on the taking a life thing. Are you saying you killed this Julian guy, our father? Gigi nodded. She came home, tried to leave him, told him he was never going to see her again, and even though I threatened him, he stuck around. And then, when I was gone one day, he forced himself on your mother, the jackass. I didn't know until later, of course, when she started showing. Does this feel responsibly written to you? I don't feel so. Not that that's an excuse. I should have known. I was about to get the shotgun and shoot his fucking balls off. I wanted to shoot his heart right out of his chest, but even though I may be dumb, I wasn't that stupid. I don't know about that. So while pregnant, he beat her. He'd beaten her everywhere the babies weren't. You were too precious, too important to his plan. The only ritual I knew to save life required life balance, and he ended up being the sacrifice. For one of you, at least. For the other, I cast magic to ensure you lived. Tied the darkness to me to make sure you could have your light, but it's never been enough. Life demands life. Where do you think this cancer came from? What did you do with the body? Seth said. Called your Aunt Anne. This is a book that we end each chapter with recipes, and we're talking about shooting a guy in the balls, murdering him regardless. He forcibly impregnated them, and we're ending chapters with recipes. From blogs. She helped me pack him into the truck, and we buried his sorry ass at Old Baylor where Evanora could keep an eye on him. Now, certain magic always comes with a price. Damn, how many books have I read this year that have said that sentence? I helped you two, but in exchange, your mother had to leave. The magic, it created its own kind of curse, and she couldn't be near you two without endangering you both. It was the price of the magic, part of the sacrifice. She didn't want to leave, Seth said. She wasn't ready to be a mother, Gigi said, her voice tight and scratchy, as though it was hard to get the words out. She still had the wildness left in her. She was so young. Every Reveler leaves. You know that. Except Sadie. Sadie never leaves. Also, she didn't want to leave, but you just called her cruel like 30 seconds ago. Okay. My magic, my sacrifice, I should have died to save you. I've lived too long. It's unbalanced. And now it's going to rebound on one of you to collect back what it's owed. I've been fighting it all the time, sustaining the bond, but even my death won't be enough. When I'm gone, you'll need a sacrifice. This feels so incredibly wishy-washy. There's no rules to this. It's just, well, we need a problem here, so we'll make up one. We need an issue over here also, so we'll make up another one. We need convenience over here, so here's some convenience. We'll throw it in. There's no rules to this, just like there's no rules to the magic of the recipes but it's not witchery. Don't forget, it's just nature. We haven't even gotten to the Young Living recipes yet. I do need to take a break though. This is draining me of life. Apparently I didn't guard my heart and remember to take my thoughts captive or whatever the fuck. Okay, I'm back. So Gigi is saying that when she is gone, they will need a sacrifice because one of them is the twin that she did not magically save because she didn't know that they existed, and when she sacrificed their dad, she saved one of them, but they need a secondary sacrifice, and the cancer is because it's been magically eating away at her body, protecting one of the twins. But they don't know which is which. They don't know which is the protected twin and which is the non-protected twin. What it boils down to is that one of you is safe and one isn't. The magic of Julian's sacrifice went into one of you. The other I've been keeping safe by tethering a ritual of protection through me. And Seth is like, it's probably you, Sadie. You're the protected one, because Seth is really broody. And so in the next chapter, Sadie, upset, despite being a person who hates running, starts running to get her feelings out.
Walking pretty fast for nothing.
Well, our president said exercise, and I am very patriotic.
It says, she was sprinting without meaning to now. Oh, I hate when that happens. I hate when my body sprints without meaning to. And it says, my damn curse. She's not saying this out loud. It just has it stated. My damn curse, period, all I want, period, is a simple, period, relationship, period. All I want, period, is, period, love, period. Great! Period. She let the thoughts flow through her, burn their way to the soles of her feet, where her shoes left black imprints on the sidewalk. Fold, 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 tuck them all away. She felt like Elsa. I'm not making a joke. That's what the book says. She felt like Elsa. Control it, conceal, don't feel. What are we doing? What is that? You can just write the feelings. You don't need to reference some Disney movie. If you were trying to have a serious moment there, you just ruined it. But it already got ruined because it says she was sprinting without meaning to, and all of this paragraph is ridiculous. All I want, period, is, period, love, period. It's just ridiculous. Also, her grandma, seeing Jake, says, you have to come to family dinner, no exceptions. And then her Aunt Tava, her mom's sister, shows up. The family's starting to show up because Grandma Gigi is dying. And Aunt Tava randomly is there, and it says, here it comes, Aunt Tava whispered. Hear what? Shh, her aunt interrupted. The first drops of September are sacred. Catch them on your tongue and you'll be granted your truest heart's desire, even if you don't know what it is yet. Is this I Smell Snow?
I smell snow.
Is this all the Gilmore Girls we're getting? Is that this is like vaguely Lorelai Gilmore being able to smell snow and having like a spiritual moment about it? Come on. Let me just breeze through a couple of things for a minute here. First of all, we have a moment where it says Sadie's Spanish, unlike Raquel's, is non-existent. You don't say.
No.
Couldn't tell by the Spanglish. Someone or something burns part of their family garden. She starts hearing snarls and shadows near or around the garden and sees like an ominous shadow. She figures out that Bambi, the dog that wandered into her garden that she decided to name Bambi, is actually Jake's dog, and she doesn't just give it back. We hear about Annabelle, that girl that used to stuff her bra as a kid that Sadie like outed for bra stuffing and now she hates her. Well, we hear Annabelle's laugh, and apparently it is a ginger snap laugh. Cool. We also hear about a breeze through an open window that's a apple crisp breeze. Not literal, just figurative, I guess. At one point she records True Grit for Gigi because Gigi loves John Wayne movies, but then she says, True Grit, that piece of trash, he should be ashamed of that movie. I'll just watch NCIS instead. So Jake comes over and he realizes that she stole his dog. And he's like, you stole my dog. She's like, I wanted to make sure you were responsible. He says, I may be bad at commitment, but I can get a dog even if I'm bad at commitment. This is also like, it's just like cutesy and breezed over the fact that she stole his dog. Like things that are supposed to be cute and funny here are not. Like in talking to Raquel about Seth coming back into town, she's like, maybe I don't want him here. He's your family, Raquel says. He's supposed to be here. Give him a chance. I'll give him a chance. A fat chance. In hell. They both laughed. At what? She continues to have this like ominous figure out in the distance staring at her, and apparently the dill in her garden is preventing it from coming in. So I don't know, maybe if she just eats a bunch of fucking potato salad, she'll be saved. I don't fucking know. Jake, her ex, at one point calls her dramatic. In fact, everybody calls Sadie dramatic. Raquel calls her dramatic. And in chapter 7, Jake, watching Sadie cook, is like, you're so focused. Everything you do has passion in it. I used to tease you about being dramatic, but it suits you. And then she like stares at him longingly. And then literally in the next chapter, he's telling her that in his apartment in Southern California, where he worked as a firefighter, by the way, which now he's here in town to be a firefighter in Northern California. Definitely not somewhere in the South, which is what this book fucking feels like it's set in. In his California apartment, in his SoCal apartment, he used to hear this couple arguing, and he said that it was like his own personal soap opera. I couldn't turn it off, made me think of you. Are you calling me dramatic? She demanded. Not if I value my life, but I remember you always eavesdropping on people and whispering their secrets to me. I forgot about that, she smiled. I never was good with boundaries. I wanted to know too much. What was it like living in the city? Hold on, roll back. You magical roofied him at one point, and you just like cutesy laughed off the fact that you have no boundaries and then moved on to, how was it in the city? Like there's no break. It's, I have no boundaries. How was living in the city? Are we fucking for real right now? But let's rewind 3 sentences. Are you calling me dramatic? Not if I value my life. You literally called her dramatic, and so did everybody else in this book. Did we forget? Did we forget that we wrote those lines previously? Gigi is still smoking because she's like, I have cancer anyways. Who gives gives a shit. And the family's like, Gigi, what if you just do chemo? Gigi was never one to mince words, but these came out sharp and sliced through the silence until Sadie could feel the incisions across her heart. I feel like that's so many sounds. This goes beyond modern medicine. It was always going to be this. Their Uncle Brian's like, is there a time frame? How long do you have? And Gigi says, whenever the good Lord calls me home. What? I don't want to go to church, but all of my magic is rooted in Christian rhetoric, and also whenever the good Lord calls me home. I'm so fucking confused. In chapter 9, Jake reveals that he's fucking engaged. So we're doing a little cheating, which is great. I'm engaged, he says. To be married? Bitch, what other kind of engaged is there? I tried to tell you, he said, his voice a shade of agony. Oh yes, there are shades to agony. Tried? You tried. It's pretty simple, Jake. 2 words. 2 words that it could have been said at any time. Every time I was about to, we got interrupted. And then Gigi, I just wanted a little bit longer, a little bit more time with you before this. How long? A few months. Why the hell did you move back here? Have you ever been at a point in your life where you felt like everything was finally going the way it was supposed to? I was happy with her, or happy enough anyway. And what, you started to get cold feet and thought you'd come back here and screw with my heart again? You're the reason I have trust issues. You're the reason I'm terrified that everyone is going to leave me. You broke my heart. You broke me. You don't think I was broken too? I wanted to come back to you. By the time that we found out she was pregnant.
Lorelai.
Just go, Chris.
Sherry's pregnant.
Oh my.
We're having a great time, y'all. Just to run down real quick, we are doing several different things here. So let's go over them. Grandma with cancer, mom is out of the picture, grandma killed our dad, long lost brother returns, Sadie has only 2 more heartbreaks to go before she loses her magic, but losing her magic is how we fix all of this in the end anyway, so what was the fucking point? And now we're doing a surprise. The guy that I'm into, who returned after 10 years, is secretly engaged and has been flirting with me for days. Oh wait, I forgot. Also, there's an ominous thing that's being kept out by the potato salad, by the dill in the fucking garden. An ominous thing is staring at me. Also, I stole this man's dog. Perfect. We're doing so good. We definitely don't have like 10 different plot things here going on, and none of them good. Oh, also don't forget the side character best friend with bipolar disorder randomly, who will show up on page to say, ay Dios mío. I don't know how this was fucking published, to be honest with you. You're excited to be a dad, Sadie said. Her breath was so cold it came out in a fog. Her breath was cold? You mean it hit the, you know what, never mind. Terrified actually, but yeah, excited too. I built part of my life with this woman, Sade, and I don't want to abandon her. I hate you. The way she said it sounded like anything but. You being here, it screws everything up. I can't breathe when you're near. You're exactly the same. You string me along, make me love you. I can't make you do anything, Sade. Trust me, I've learned that by now. You and me were like fire and gasoline. These people are fucking toxic. Talking to her brother in the next chapter, her brother tells her, don't let your sorrow be Gigi's burden. Wait until she's gone to mourn her. You know she's always told us don't borrow trouble. And I don't know, something about that feels... I'm surprised that it didn't say, though the sorrow may last for the night, joy comes in the morning. It's a Bible thing. Speaking of Bible thing, before I get into chapter 10, I thought about this last night. I think that a lot of people are not going to catch the references to Funnyland specifically here, and that it's going to frustrate me if people show up in the comments and say, well, I didn't catch on to that, or I didn't see that, so I don't think it's there. I think you're overreacting. I think you're reaching. And I can't imagine doing that to somebody who grew up in the sect of Christianity, particularly fundamentalist evangelical Christianity. I would never do that to somebody. So please think before you speak. For instance, recently I read Star Mother, and I didn't pick up on all of the Mormon stuff in here because I am completely removed from Mormonism. They are technically Christians, and yet they and I have very different upbringings. And even within, there's stuff that I don't know from Catholics are also Christians. Not if you ask evangelicals, but they are. And there's a bunch of stuff in Catholicism. I don't know hardly anything about it. So if you told me like, oh, this book is so Catholic coded, I would believe you because you would know more than I do about that. When people told me, hey, Star Mother is super Mormon coded, the author is Mormon, I was like, oh, I didn't even pick up on that. I didn't know it was there. Thanks for letting me know. But there are people who, when I talk about like fundy subterfuge in books, they're like, you're reaching. I'm not reaching. I'm telling you what I know. And when I asked somebody, hey, tell me about the Mormon like undertones here in Star Mother, they said, there's something about it I can't put my finger on, but I know that it's Mormon. And I believed them because they were Mormon. They know more than I do. And then somebody else came in and explained like, you know, here's the more specific things that I picked up on in your review. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I believed both. And I'm asking that if you think I'm reaching, that's a you opinion. You don't need to share it with me. I know what I'm seeing, and all of the other people who grew up evangelical fundy, we know what we're seeing. I believe Mormons, and I'm asking to be believed as well. So I just wanted to say that before I continue on. All right, in chapter 10, Bethany, the pregnant, we'll get there, fiance, shows up, and it says, I hope I see you again, Bethany says to Sadie, her hair wafting cardamom like a spicy wave of welcome. Oh my God, this writing is just not for me. Hard not to in a town like this, Sadie told her.
I tell you, it's true. Small towns sure are friendly.
And they smiled at each other. Jake looked back over his shoulder at Sadie as they walked away. This would be the new normal. Stolen glances and hidden memories, secret desire and guilt, bitter as bile. Girl, let him go. He is engaged. That is gross. On Sunday, Sadie was refusing to go to church, and Gigi, the one who we were told doesn't like church previously, but then said, when the good Lord calls me home, then says, Gigi put her foot down. I won't have you hanging around here wasting your life with some dottery old fool. I know they're having a potluck today after service, and you're supposed to bring something. You called them like a bunch of bigots a few chapters ago, and now you're like, oh, you have to go to the church potluck. What are we doing? This is so waffly. During the greeting, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez came over, Raquel's family. Oh, mi querida. Mrs. Rodriguez held out her hands to Sadie and squeezed them before pulling her into a hug. It was warm, and she smelled faintly of cinnamon, and Sadie wanted to sink into her forever. For all Raquel's mock complaints about her family, Sadie had grown up envying her. She starts to think, how can I keep Gigi alive? There's a grand revel in April, and that's when her magic is at its strongest, but she knows that Gigi won't make it that long. The family, the aunts and uncles are there taking care of their mom, Gigi, except for Sadie and Seth's mom. And she says to her Aunt Anne, why don't you rest? I will. You won't, Sadie smiled. Sometimes it's easier to serve than it is to sit. Anne shrugged. You know the story of Mary and Martha in the Bible? Your Martha, Sadie guessed. Martha was distracted, or she was distracting herself, maybe both, but Mary was just sitting there at Jesus' feet. Martha asked Jesus if he cared that Mary had left her to do the work by herself, and told him to tell her sister to help her. He said that Mary had chosen the right path, but they both served a purpose, didn't they? I know what you mean, Sadie said. It's like love. Sometimes it's harder to let yourself be loved than it is to love. There's more vulnerability in it. It's stepping back and saying, I trust you enough to love me. Like Mary sitting there and just listening. If you're using Bible stories to make your point like this, and you have also referenced the Bible several times, and you have also made it so that the magic, which is not called witchcraft, and in fact explicitly told us, don't call me a witch, by a Christian church attending non-witch whose magic and magical ideas are rooted in Bible rhetoric, I don't know still if you can really get on my case for wanting to call this Christian fiction. It kind of fucking feels like it. I do think that this book, it seems like the author probably lost an important grandparent, because there are moments in here that feel very human and feel very much like those days in which you are losing your grandparent. Why hadn't she ever been better about taking photos and videos? Why hadn't she journaled all of Gigi's stories, recorded all her funny sayings, and typed out recipes so she'd never forget them? But then right after this, we forget what we have already previously typed, because she is smoking a cigarette and Gigi says, should have known they'd kill me one day. And Sadie says, your cancer is in your back and stomach, Gigi, Sadie said, trying to be consoling. And I'm like, wait, but Gigi herself said previously that chemo won't work because the cancer It wasn't caused by cigarettes. It was caused by the magic. What do you mean should have known they killed me one day? Just a few chapters ago, you said this was caused by magic, you yourself. And instead of having that moment where it's like, maybe Gigi's forgetting because she's dying, maybe, you know, she's starting to go, we just ignore this. So it seems like the author forgot. But Gigi does start to forget things. She starts to ask, like, I need to go to Vegas, where's my suitcase? But then she has a moment of clarity where she says, Sadie, under my bed, there's a green metal file box. You'll find everything you need to know. In there, there's a notebook with all the ailments of folks around town and what they need, the recipes and spells too. You'll need to take that over. I don't know why we didn't say this sooner. Part of my curse was that I would drive my own daughter away. It was my punishment for what I'd done, taking justice into my own hands. The rules of magic are clear on that, and it nearly destroyed me, but then it turned out to be my biggest blessing because I got to raise the two of you. You were born with magic in your veins and a knowing in your souls. When the fire of ancient wisdom burns in you, you will know that it's me in there with you, urging you on. Gigi starts to pass and Sadie says, it's okay, she whispered to her grandmother, you can let go. And what happens? She murmured the 23rd Psalm, and by the time she'd spoken the last verse, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, Gigi took her last shuddering breath. At the same moment, 2 hummingbirds flew in through the open window and performed an intricate dance over Gigi's body before flying away. And now there were 30 days until they had to satisfy the balance of magic, or one of them would pay with their lives. So when the grandma who hated church and called everybody at church like basically bigoted dies, she reads the 23rd Psalm to her. But it's not Christian fiction, right? We're still straddling the line, I guess. Like, how many times does it need to be brought up, and how many times does it need to affect the way that we wrote the book for it to be called that? I think that it was intentionally straddling that line and trying to do that so that you couldn't call this Christian fiction, and therefore it would be better marketed, because Christian fiction doesn't get the kind of marketing push that other books get, because typically Christian fiction sucks. And also, nobody wants to be preached to unless they are already a Christian, so you have a bigger market if you're marketing to non-believers. Non-believers, I feel like that's a very funny term for me to use. People who are not still practicing that religion. Shun the non-believer. In chapter 11, it says, Sadie, her voice soft but brittle, told Seth, I had to memorize a poem in high school, Pablo Neruda. It was a death poem. All I can remember is the line, falling out of the skin and into the soul. That's what I feel like. Death is the enemy, the first and the last, and the enemy always wins, but we still have to fight him, or something like that. Pretty sure that was Beric Dondarrion from Game of Thrones. How many fucking references are we gonna shove into this? Seth explains that he feels very heavy all the time. He is struggling with a lot of depression, and now Sadie is starting to feel like that after Gigi's death, and she's wondering if this is how Seth feels all the time because she failed to save Gigi. The weight of failure made her feel empty. Everything lacked purpose. And in order to convey the range of emotions, we have scene after scene where we're told the truffle ice cream that somebody dropped off tasted like sorrow. She'd almost forgotten what pleasure felt like, but she smells a peach and it smelled like a promise. What does a promise smell like? She then finds a letter from her grandma, Peapod. She addresses her. For the life debt, I'm sorry I kept it from you for so long. If you sacrifice yourself, Seth will be safe. When you give up who you are, you become someone new. And that means all the old debts are forgiven, the dark magic nullified. You're a new creation. It's a baptism of sorts. My fundy bells are like, there's a verse, this one I don't remember what book it's in. The Bible trivia is starting to leave my brain. So this is a reference to 2 Corinthians. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old is gone, the new is here. Or the NLV version, which was typically my preferred version. Anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun. Okay? So you can see that when you put these things together, they are clearly, one is clearly inspired by the other, which is the pattern that we've had. What are we on, 6 references now to specific Bible verses? I don't fucking remember. You're a new creation. When you give up who you are, you become someone new. All the old debts are forgiven. It's a baptism of sorts. And that's what we believe, is that in my sect of Fundyland, we don't believe in baptizing babies. We believe in baptizing children when they are old enough to make the choice for themselves, because then it is more of a symbolic thing of a choice that you've already made. And it's sort of like it's sort of like when you get married, you sign a paper, right? You make a promise to God, but then you can also have a wedding ceremony. So the baptism in my sect of Fundyland is more of a symbolic thing to celebrate that you have made the choice to leave off the old you and take on the new you in in Christ. And that belief is what is inspiring this. And this is the answer. This is the whole thing that the book hinges on, is Sadie figuring out what her grandma meant by this. Now, first of all, why didn't her grandma just say this before she died? And second of all, the fact that the answer to solve this huge problem is rooted in a Bible verse feels like, how is that different from Christian fiction? And this is, again, like, I don't have a definitive answer for you on whether or not this can be categorized as such, but I'm not really seeing a huge difference between this book and this book, which is Christian fiction, and which has a similar setup where the answer is you giving your life to Christ, taking off the old you and becoming something new. Now, it doesn't specifically say that Sadie becomes a Christian in order to fix the problem, but Sadie's already a Christian, so we're just symbolically doing the same thing that Sadie's already been doing. So is it Christian fiction? I don't know, you tell me. I'm not really seeing a huge difference. So again, it's a baptism of sorts, that kind of sacrifice. Just make sure you're prepared for it. Gigi was dead. Her aunts and uncles would soon return to their lives and homes and jobs. Seth had never promised to stay, and Jake, well, it was too late for that, so she's so depressed. Everything she'd ever been, all that she'd known, it died with Gigi, and she couldn't do it, even with her life or maybe Seth's hanging in the balance. She couldn't think of a single way to nullify the conduit magic, and in that moment, anger dominoed through her heart. Anger at Gigi for killing Julian and incurring the life debt, at her mother for putting Gigi in a position to have it, at Julian for being the world's biggest dick. The world's biggest dick is how you describe a literal rapist? The world's biggest dick. I just feel like this book does not take anything seriously. And by the way, this fucking chapter ends with a recipe for maple butterscotch walnut fudge. Are we taking a single thing seriously? Like, we are not handling this with like the gravity that it deserves. So then her mom shows back up, and she thought that her mom would come back in years, not immediately, after we've had time to grieve. Yet there she stood. She was tired of accepting things as they came. Each calamity had stacked up until the weight made it almost impossible to breathe. She'd grown up hearing that God, capital G, okay, never gave you more than you could handle, but he, capital H, had obviously mistaken her for someone else, and this was the last straw. So if it had just been that, then okay, I would not say this is straddling the line between like Christian fiction and maybe not. But it's that combined with all the other context I've been giving you. But if it had just been that, I wouldn't be like, God, what is this? A Christian book? It's everything, and now everything's just stacking on top of each other. It's just another thing. It's the dominoes in Sadie's heart or whatever the fuck. So her mom says, I told myself I was in love and Julian was my ticket out, but by the time I realized I was lying to myself, I tried to leave him, but something always compelled me back. That's when he told me about the ritual to rid me of my magic. Of course, it really was to make me fertile. I was stupid to believe him. I blame myself. I never should have tried to run away from who I was, what I was. I was too scared and stubborn to ask for help, and then I was pregnant. I don't really feel comfortable about the way that this woman was written to talk about the fact that she wasn't just pregnant and too stubborn to ask for help. She was raped. So anyway, I didn't want to leave you, but you have to understand I was physically unable to stay. The spell Gigi cast, I was forced away. Fate pushed me until I was outside the city limits. Even then, I stayed as long as I could. I hovered in the next town over, but catastrophe started to strike, natural disasters. So she tried to be near her kids, but then things kept getting pushed away, which is different than what Gigi said previously, was that her mom is cruel. This is completely the opposite to that. She was trying to stay, and then any town nearby she would stay in, a calamity would strike. Florence told them how she'd been at rock bottom, wondering what her damnation would be if she were to take her own life, when in reality she knew she never could, never would, not without seeing Sadie and Seth again. She performed a ritual, fully believing it wouldn't work. She found a man with no name, and 2 months later was shocked to find out she was pregnant with Sage.
Oh, I'm sorry. That must be my other daughter, Shmori.
So they have a little sister. It was my chance to start over, to try again, to do it right this time, because even though the curse isn't my fault, even though I'm not the one who killed Julian, it was my fault. It was all my fault. I don't like this at all. I am super uncomfortable with the way this woman is being treated by the text. And also, like, getting pregnant with a no-name man, like that, all of this feels very weird and manipulative. So then they all start revealing what their magic is to each other, which I don't know why they couldn't or wouldn't do before. Seth knows what people want or what they need, even if they don't know it themselves. I know their deepest secrets. Those are two different things, I fear. Everything from their greatest desire to their most inane wish, I know fucking all of it. And it like weighs on him. It makes him feel very heavy. It makes him depressed. Oh, honey, Florence said, their mom. That's gotta be tough. But Seth, Sadie said, that's amazing. And he said, amazing. Every Reveler has magic and a curse. Mine are just one and the same. You can't imagine what it's like, okay? I go to pay for gas. The checkout guy, his girlfriend is pregnant by another guy, and he's so miserable all the time. All he wants is to kill himself. This is the second reference to people wanting to die by suicide. And again, it's going to get worse. There's going to be 3, and the third one's the charm. And by charm, I mean it's a fucking curse. Like, this book's discussion of suicide is so irresponsible and gross. He wants to kill himself, and I feel it so strongly that I feel like I want to kill myself too, Seth says. Great. So they're trying different things, trying to get rid of this, you know, this life debt that was incurred, because one of them is going to end up dead. And Sadie's like, it's Seth who's going to die if we don't get rid of this curse. It's my responsibility to save my brother. That's what Gigi's letter to me meant. And so their mom's like, well, maybe we can perform this ritual. I need something of both of yours that like is very meaningful to both of you. And Sadie's thing that means the most to her is her signature scent, which is, I shit you not, including a name brand blend of essential oils from Young Living, which suddenly this whole book is starting to make a whole lot more sense. If this author was a part of an MLM. Listen, I like thieves oil. I've talked about this before. I'm obsessed with the scent of it, and placebo effect, I still use it when I feel sick, but it's irresponsible to just shove it in a book, and it's weird to use the name brand, because thieves specifically, that's like trademarked or whatever, I don't know copyright stuff, by Young Living specifically. Any other essential oils brand like Eden's Garden or whatever has to use a different name for it. And it's not just a one-off thieves, because we're also going to name drop another blend of essential oils by Young Living later. Sadie does like dark magic using thieves oil, which she's not supposed to do. And Seth's like, what the hell? You weren't supposed to do that. So then she shows him the letter from Gigi, and once again, it repeats, and it repeats this letter throughout the text. So you have this reference to a Bible verse over and over and over again. He reads Gigi's letter, the dark magic nullified, you're a new creation, it's a baptism of sorts, that kind of sacrifice. Sadie's like, if I had to guess, it means I need to remove myself from the equation. There's something we're missing, and it's more elusive than a freaking well-made gâteau Saint-Honoré. I don't know French. He looked at her blankly. The hardest dessert to make in the world? Is this supposed to be funny? Are we aware of like the stakes here? We get another reference to fucking Ginger Snap Wind again. Ginger Snap Laugh, Ginger Snap Wind. What does it mean? Then we start getting references, which this happened like earlier in the book, but then we start getting more of it. References to the founding families of this town, who apparently spelled the ground and blessed the buildings, but now only like some of the townspeople believe in the magic. These founding families have not come up on the page at all until suddenly Sadie's like, I need help. I'm gonna ask the founding families. And the founding families have basically nothing to help her. Like they try and it doesn't work. Shocker. Because instead, the vaguely worded answer in Gigi's letter just eludes Sadie. So then she's like talking to Jake, and Jake says to her, Bethany's trying to block me out. She won't tell me anything about the baby. She won't let me put my hand on her stomach. Bethany won't tell him anything about the doctor's appointments, and we're gonna find out that she's faking being pregnant. Sadie's like, maybe she's just scared. And instead of answering like a normal dude with a pregnant fiance to maybe your fiance's just scared, he says, I think you're scared and I wish I could help. Jake, whatever happens, I believe in you. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. So Sadie, feeling like she has no other choice, decides to make a whole bunch of Jerusalem cherry tea. In small doses, it could be used as a sleep aid. In a medium dose, it would knock you out. In a big enough dose, you would fall asleep and never wake up. Trigger warning for attempted suicide here. Never wake up berries, her brother and her called them when they were kids. She'd make the hard choice if she had to. It wasn't that the world would be better off without her, but that she would be better off without the world. She'd shoved her grief aside as she tried to find a way to save Seth. But now, with the truth laid bare before her, this was the only cure. It came roaring back. She didn't want Seth to die. So she drinks a bunch of Jerusalem cherry tea in order to induce her own death, because she believes that if she dies, Seth will be saved. And also she's dealing with a ton of grief. I cannot express to you how incredibly misleading it is to have a book that you label a cozy book and then have a main character going through such deep grief and painful circumstances that they tried to die by suicide. You have to tell your readers that. You can't just label this a cozy book. There is no attempted suicide in a cozy book. Though that is such like incredible amounts of intentional mismarketing. And then the fact that this wasn't even added to the trigger warnings until after the fact, like not a single ARC reader, and I know some of them, was told that that was in here beforehand. This was marketed to cozy book readers and they were not warned beforehand. They also weren't warned about the religious elements and the degree of the religious elements. And this makes sense considering how often evangelicals do subterfuge anyway. Bait and switch tactics are the bread and butter. Anyway, Seth comes in and he gives her a bunch of jewel weed, which is an antidote to poison. He's like, "You're so stupid. Why would you do this?" And Seth calls Jake. When everything happened with Bethany, I thought, hell, get married, have a kid. And even though something was missing, I knew I couldn't put my own kid through a broken home. I want to be a dad, but when Seth called me, I almost lost it, Sadie. You're the love of my life. So tell me, what am I supposed to do here? Why are we doing relationship problems right now when she just tried to die by suicide?
Okay, you need to do this later.
I can't do this later. Rory, I love you. I love you, damn it. How many times do I have to tell you? God, just talk to me.
Priority list is out of whack here. This is so irresponsible. I don't know, she said. You always know, he says. Of course, we don't deal with this attempt to die by suicide at all. It was basically just to put her in a position where Jake is like, but I love you. I don't want to be with Bethany.
This is about a boy. Of course.
And then, surprise, surprise, she talks to Bethany and she gives her food, just like she did with Jake, that makes her more susceptible to telling the truth. I was afraid he'd come back here and fall back in love with you, Bethany said. And well, I knew he'd want to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? You should have seen his eyes light up when I told him about the baby. It was like a present that he'd been waiting for his whole life but didn't even know he wanted. He looked so hopeful. I've been trying ever since to actually get pregnant. Then I could tell him that the days were just a little off. So Bethany faked being pregnant. So we had a fake pregnancy plot line. So then their mom is like, okay, we could try a spell where it's like each of you give up half your magic and then it'll be like a whole and then that should satisfy the curse. And then it doesn't. Oh, this is the part where she uses her signature perfume, and that's where it talks about how in order to make her signature perfume, she did a drop of valor for courage. Valor, unlike thieves, was not capitalized, but valor, just like thieves, is a specific blend of essential oils copyrighted by Young Living, so it should be capitalized. A drop of valor for courage, patchouli for her free spirit, white angelica for peace, lavender for calm. Of course, this doesn't work, so she goes back to the drawing board, i.e. the letter that Gigi left, without just explicitly telling her what the fuck to do, for whatever reason. You're a new creation, it's a baptism of sorts, that kind of sacrifice. Just make sure you're prepared for it. And she finally figures it out. Give up who you are, Gigi had written. Gigi hadn't meant for Sadie to sacrifice herself by giving up her life, but by surrendering, ding ding ding, fundy rhetoric, who she was. And she was many things. Bitter, yes. Grudge holder, yes. She was magic, and that was what she had to sacrifice. Gigi didn't want me to sacrifice my life. She was telling me I had to sacrifice my magic. And again, it just said she was magic. So the core of who Sadie is what needs to be sacrificed to save her brother. That is the baptism. That is Fundy belief. We believe that we have to die to self is the term that we use. We have to not be who we desire to be, but instead accept Christ as our Savior and be the version of ourselves that Christ dictates we be. And that is the answer. That's how she fixes this problem. She dies to self. Without using that phrase, that is what happens. And then her and Jake get together and the curse is gone because Sadie died to self. She had a baptism of sorts where she got rid of who she was, book's words, the magic, had a baptism of sorts, and became new, which is exactly what happens when you accept Christ as your savior. Which is why when I Google the term died to self, the very verse that is inspiring the letter from her grandma and the answer from her grandma is coming up, because dying to self is the message in that Bible verse. Then her and Jake are together, they're making out. Seth is no longer gonna die from the curse. The shadowy thing is no longer trying to get in the garden and being kept behind by the fucking dill. And Bambi the dog gets to live in a 2-parent home. And Seth is fine. I'm gonna go to therapy. Now that the curse is gone, it's like I can feel which part of the darkness were because of the debt and which parts were just me. I know the sacrifice wasn't a cure, but it feels like the start of understanding how to manage it, you know? And the last line of the book is, hold on to hope no matter the cost, because as long as there's hope, everything else is just the unfortunate side effects of heartbreak and magic. There's lots of Bible verses about hope that this could be tied back to, but I doubt it's tied back to a specific one like the other instances. The acknowledgements say, first, thank you, God, for putting this dream in my heart and bringing it to fruition. I'm honestly like horrified by this. Like I'm horrified by this book's depiction of death by suicide and its lack of care in handling that amongst other topics, just like to name a few. Depression, anxiety, and in particular, rape. The way that rape is discussed in this book, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I'm horrified. I'm genuinely just horrified by this book. If you're going to write this where there's this much biblical references in it, that's fine. Just don't mismarket it. Let people know up front what's in your book. Let people know what the message is that you're trying to convey. Don't be wishy-washy about it in order to try to gain a potential audience of many when you are writing for a potential audience of much fewer people. I know that that sucks, but don't bait and switch people into reading a book that they are not in a good position to read. I'm thankful that I knew what this was going in, because so many of my friends have warned me, and specifically so many of my friends who are former fundies warned me. To all three of you, I thank you profusely. And then if you go look at the Goodreads reviews, all of their concerns are mirrored in one review or another, and that's why the reason why this has such a middling review, rating on Goodreads is because so many people were swindled, and a lot of them are people who grew up with the religious beliefs that are conveyed in this book in weird slippery ways, and that wasn't told to them beforehand. But people who didn't grow up in that probably didn't catch on, and I don't know, maybe they have different standards for rep of suicide, and some people had a good time, but most people who read this, especially ones that I know, felt entirely swindled. So please let this be a lesson. If you are still a Christian, that's fine. But if you are writing things where the answer is die to self, you might still be writing Christian fiction, and you have a duty to not mismarket in order to get a broader audience. People are not in a position to read that all the time. I have to know it's Christian fiction going into it and prepare myself for that, because I have a lot of trauma related to that religion, and I know that that sucks to hear, but it's not just the people who did me dirty, it was also combined with the belief system. So when that's shoved into the media that I read, and I read it unprepared, I'm not in a good place. Just like when I experience, when I read pregnancy in a book, it's not always bad, but I had trauma related to pregnancy, so I need to know beforehand. I'm also an SA victim, particularly when I was under 18, so I also need to know when that's in a book, and this didn't do a good job discussing that, even if it did happen off page. I think that this might be triggering for other victims of sexual assault. There is a lot of irresponsibility in the writing and the marketing here, and maybe the writing was not intentional, but the mismarketing was intentional, and I find that deeply irresponsible. All right, that was the unfortunate side effects of heartbreak and magic. I'm gonna go eat more of that cake now to make myself feel better. This drained me of life. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, leave a baked good, because we need them after. Leave a baked good emoji, sorry. leave your favorite baked good emoji, because we need some comfort after reading something this triggering. It was supposed to be cozy, god damn it. Thanks so much for watching. Comments and questions go down below. Like and subscribe if you want to. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hi, before I go, I have to say a very special thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Animations, Ashley H, Astra, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Roctopus, Ellie, Eric, Jade, John E, K, Kaleno K, Katie Ann, Kelly K, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily, Luna Moth, Mata Raptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Mindy, Mixer Boneless, Peggy, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Spoopy, Steph B, Super SMA Girl Lily, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you to my potato starch Marxists, and those are Adrienne, Aaron, Alejandra, Alicia is Herbie Derby Dunn, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry the Witch, Beck, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Bridget, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Kathy, Celeste, Claire Online, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea, supports public education, hell yeah, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Fiona, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Hreesing, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessie Ives, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Caitlin M, Catherine M, Katie L, Katrina, Kaylee C, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, Lisa, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man Eating Plant, Mary, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Morgan, Myth Lesbian, Never, Nicole G, Oxford Comma Supporter, hell yeah, Paige P, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pondemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca R, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Sikoria, Sadie, Saintbringer, Sakia Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Stardust, T. Delegati, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, Wobbs, and Zayden's award-winning eggplant. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend, especially to the eggplant.